Welcome to your awakening. Please stay calm as your reality is adjusted.
Please stay calm as the delay continues. While I'm waiting for my browser to catch up. Welcome, folks. Welcome back again. Greetings and well met. Stop screen share. Is it catching up now? Oh, yeah, there you go. Audio. Oh, quick, mute it. Right, at least I know the audio is working. Yeah, sorry about that. I had been listening to the Raconteurs news. My browser was dropping into super slow mode, which it seems to love to do these days now with the broadcasts, the live broadcasts. If I switch to using Chrome, it suddenly works fine, works perfectly. I wonder why. Could Google be connected in there somewhere? I think, yeah, more than likely. I'm trying to multitask and share onto the Google Plus, as I've called it before, the Google Plus. So I'm just clicking through, pressing buttons, sharing it onto that social media platform while it still exists. Because I know otherwise it doesn't exactly move around that much the way Google is these days. I know they've cul-de-saced me. So this broadcast tend to only really move around if people actively do that themselves. You know, the algorithm doesn't do us any favors anymore. In fact, completely the opposite. So yes, anyway, finished multitasking. Got a chat room open. Hi to everyone in the chat room. Thanks for joining us. I'm glad you're caught up in, like, if you're jumping across from the Raconteurs news, I'm sure some people are. Type in the chat box, say hello. Evening. So quick hello, lots of Tatsro. Hello. And Tazzy. Tazzy's been in and out the room to say hello. Dave Iron, hello. And Reality Chat's already there. He's already here in the room. And Society of Spectacle is here as well. So hello to everyone in the chat room so far. Yeah, it was interesting listening to the guys at Raconteurs News. They started at 7. I think they just finished up. That's why it was a bit of a quick jump to start this broadcast. And I went back to the old time slot of 9 till 11 to give them the chance to, finish their broadcast before we start off. I know it's inevitable that at some point broadcasts will cross over and there's that many different channels and people putting out stuff that, of course, things are going to overlap. But at the moment here in the UK, is there another UK broadcaster, in the YouTube internet sense? I prefer to, adjust my time a little bit so that it allows everybody the chance to do their broadcast before they start clashing. Now I'm just rambling. Shut up and get on with it. It's been one of those days, and it's proving to be another crazy day in the UK with the announcement that the currently upcoming vote on Brexit in the UK Parliament has been delayed. Now Theresa May has decided she wants to not do it tomorrow because it's too soon. Oh, everything's going wrong. The ship's going down. It's May's Day. Yeah, she's caught in the matrix now, of which there will be no escape for her. It's caught in her own matrix. Yeah, it's been somewhat of a crazy day, so I'm sort of catching up on getting this set up and going. It is, what am I missing? I know I'm missing something. That's why it's stumbling me. Yeah, notes page. And I don't have a lot of notes tonight. I went looking for my yellow jacket earlier. I saw Jason had put his on, and I thought, yeah, I'll see if I can find mine. I can't find it. So I'd be no good in France because it's not in a vehicle. It's somewhere stuffed in a cupboard or a drawer somewhere. I'll have to dig it out and put it on at some point. I thought maybe if I go walking around wearing it, maybe it might spark a revolution. Do I want a revolution? No, I don't. Maybe if you'd asked me that 10 years ago, I might have been more inclined to say yes. But over time, and I think I explained this the other day, like I became more of a minarchist. If we're going to end up having government, then it should be the most minimal government possible to do what you want from it, and it shouldn't be allowed to grow. So minarchist. But over time, the more I looked at this stuff and various subjects that we're often talking about, such as the revolutions and the connections to the secret societies and the political game playing and the grand chessboard and all that kind of stuff, the more I came to the conclusion that no, revolution never helps the people truly. It might help in the short term for some people. It might alleviate the pressure and the degradation of the lowest level of the social classes. But in the long term, it doesn't solve the problems in any way whatsoever. All it does is kill off and destroy the current sitting power players, where politicians, prime ministers, whatever they are, royals as well. It kills them off and it destroys a lot of the infrastructure of your own society. And then over time, the whole situation just gets reset up again. And in another 50, 100 years' time, we'd have the same problems. It'd just be different faces sat on the same throne. So, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't be against walking around wearing a yellow vest, but not the idea that, by doing so, you hope to spark a revolution, because a revolution isn't going to really solve the problems. It's just going to cause a lot of chaos and harm, potentially a lot of death, even though there are some people out there that, maybe deserve it. I'm sure that would be a massive argument unto itself. But it's not going to solve the problems. It's not going to get rid of the effects of those problems, because it would just, go back to the same point. Revolution, the clue is in the name. It goes round in a circle and comes back to where it was. You have revolved. I've spoken about this in the past on previous episodes. The element of voltage. Why that word is shaped the way it is. If you look into the etymology of it, revolt, it's like when somebody's heart stops and they use electricity to jolt the heart back into motion again. The heart is an electric pump. We sort of chatted about stuff like this before we started, so it's still buzzing in my brain from the electricity. But yeah, revolution. I don't really want to spark a revolution. I wouldn't mind sparking a resolution, or at least a movement towards a resolution, because, like I said, revolution is just going round and round in circles. You destroy something, you come back round and end up building it again. It's the Phoenix principle. And I've explained, I've gone through that idea in previous episodes. That's why I refer to it as the revolution machine. The system itself uses that methodology of getting the people to destroy their own world, so that then they can come in and go, it looks like you need new infrastructure. We'll build it for you. Oh, it looks like you need somebody to organise your country for you. Oh, here's a load of politicians that will do it for you. Yeah, and a reference here, go and listen to the Who, Won't Get Fooled Again. Yeah, that song, and the lyrics of that song encapsulates the idea quite well. But yes, the resolution. I'm happy to join in with adding energy to a movement that is going towards resolution, or resolutions. It's multiple. That's why I thought title for tonight was Viva la Resolution. No, forget the idea of fucking revolution. It's not really going to solve the problem. Your children will end up in the same problem again. Maybe their children. Might take 2 generations before the thing's done its full circle again, but you're not going to be fixing the future for your lineage if you go through that revolution process. To have me thinking about all that stuff, the various things, I think we mentioned it on Wednesday, that snapshot view of the outages on Facebook, and lo and behold, it turns out other phone services were having problems over the last weekend, coinciding with all this activity going on all across Europe, because it is spreading. The system and the mainstream media is happy to push out a message of like, oh yeah, there was some protests, some people marched and waved signs, and there was a bit of trouble, but nothing to look at here, folks. Nothing that you need to know about. Just move along. Look at the TV. Look at the latest, whatever drama or celebrity gossip shit is on the TV. Oh, look, Brexit. Don't worry about all these people self-organizing and taking action, being actively involved in things that can put a little bit of a spanner in the works of their society's political structures. I'm trying to word it in such a way it's not necessarily so direct. Basically, they're doing things that they know will cause a financial or logistical problem for the authorities, the status quo, the infrastructure of the political system that is fucking up their lives. Going on an organised march, and I've experienced this myself. This is, I mentioned the Raconteurs News guys. When I went on their show and chatted with them, I tried to explain this point then. It's like protest the way it's done now in the UK. It's only good for networking. It's a good way to meet people who maybe interested in the same things as you, maybe sort of want to work towards things similar to you do. And it's a way of letting the general populace know that there is this subject that you want to bring attention to. But it does not change the direction of the ship of state. The parliament, the government, the councils, whatever, they'll just carry on. They might say, oh, sorry, we're sorry that you're upset, but we're still going this direction. It doesn't matter how many of you go out in the streets and march on an official march, on a license where you're allowed to protest. You walk along, you wave your placards, you chant your slogans, and then you go back to work the next week. And the situation doesn't change. Oh, what a surprise. Whereas taking direct action, as some call it, action is action, but taking direct action, as was shown before here in the UK when the fuel protests really started to kick into gear and gain momentum, and this is similar to what they're doing in France and other places now, direct action that they know will cause a financial or logistical problem for those political institutions. Not just the fact that it gains attention in the media or to the public in general, that's part of it, but really what it's about is shoving a spanner in between those cogwheels so that the machine starts to creak and grind. And in doing so, the noise and the cacophony that is generated by that is heard by the general populace. And more people start to look at it and see it for what it is. This big machine, throw yourself on the gears and the wheels, and this machine shall be stopped from working. I'm paraphrasing it terribly, but I'm sure you've all heard that quote before. Viva la resolution. Maybe I could have pluralized it and put an S on the end, but it gets the point across, hopefully. And the subtitle was something that links into other things that have been going on recently, but I feel are very much connected, because meanwhile, while this energy is building up, because this is classically what the system will do, this is the methodology it uses, it knows that this friction creates this energy build up, They grind down and people push back. And in that friction between the immovable object and the unstoppable force, that's that energy buildup. And at some point it has to be released. At some point it has to be discharged. So they enact methodologies that allow people a way to vent, to steam valve. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on in this environment in particular, social media in particular, because they know that that is now the new tool that most people who are going the direction of like, hang on a minute, I don't agree with this legislation, I want to go and join in with something that's, pushing back against that kind of shit. They're going to do most of their organizing via things that are based on the internet, social media in particular. That's what I mentioned just a minute ago, that thing about the Facebook outages and problems. I don't think that's coincidental. It's one of those suspicious coincidences. But that methodology enables them to discharge that energy before it reaches a point that actually starts to cause them problems. Spoken many times in the past about the idea of the general strike, which is something that, in a union sense, by the trade, I mean the trade unions, the union movements here in the UK, is highly improbable because they've been so disempowered and infiltrated and controlled by the state system. They'd never agree to or organise towards a general strike. But a way to bring this system to a slowdown or a complete stop such that its internal workings are more revealed to the general populace, and in doing so, many of the illusions are broken down, and the compartmentalized elements of the structure of the machine start to fall apart. And as they do, it's like a domino effect, like a house of cards. Once one element collapses, it removes the support to the other elements of the machine. So the whole thing starts to fall apart. When that begins, that would be a real revolution in the concept of what most people have of what is called a revolution, the definition of revolution, of changing the world that you live in for a way that you feel would be better. Really, that's what it comes down to, doesn't it? You want the world to be better, so you want this change to occur that we're told is called a revolution. And we're told and taught that the way it happens is you use violence and you go and kill the people on the throne, and then you become the person on the throne. Oh, well, so the system hasn't fucking changed, has it? So there's my point, yeah. A general strike would bring the mechanics, the processes of the system to a grind or a complete halt. So it's a way that we could slow this thing down at the least, or potentially stop it. And if it stops, like I say, the machine relies on constant movement. So if you bring it to a halt, it will start falling in on itself. Yes, and in the subtitle, the reason why I made that kind of connection is recently, and I know we've spoken about this on Monday nights and on a Wednesday night when we've been chatting. Recently, there's been more of a push of certain ideas or subjects that some people out there think that it's worthwhile for the majority of the populace to get interested in and start researching and be concerned about, as if it's going to change our situation, change the world for the better. And it got me thinking about, well, I know I've ranted a lot about this kind of stuff over recent shows, the push of the various psyops, the connections back towards things like the general switch that happened in 2012, or around that time, when the system started putting much more effort into this environment, not just YouTube alone, but the internet environment, all the social media platforms, the big names of those platforms. And you get the connections to things like the Cass Sunstein paper, Sunstein. Yeah, coincidence there. Cass Sunstein. Pushing for that idea of, we must appropriate this environment and we must brainwash people into believing our narrative and to pushing out and excluding anyone that speaks any kind of counter narrative. So there's been all these various agendas going on over the last few years, various psyops that are being constantly pushed. It's easy to see when you go and look at the trending page of YouTube, how whenever it comes to a conspiracy genre topic or something that is potentially anti-government or anti-status quo, it's appropriated, it's turned into pantomime silliness, it's diluted and simplified and cartoonified, and it's become trendy to be into conspiracy theories. But it's the kind of conspiracy theories that are just childish in their content and childish in their expectations of some kind of resolution or usefulness out of the conclusion of said conspiracy theory. So classic one that I know everybody knows about and many people have mentioned is the flat earth. What difference is it going to make to the status quo of your situation and the betterment of the future of your situation and that of your lineage, your children? What difference is it going to make if people know that the world is one shape or another? Are you all suddenly going to fall off the planet if it turns out to be the wrong shape? No, because if that was true, it would have already happened. It just takes a bit of simplistic critical thinking, question and answer processes to realize that, well, even if there is any truth to the claim in the first place, how is it going to help us in this situation that we're in? In a very, very tiny way, it helps people perceive a potential lie, and therefore removing a layer of illusion that is used by the system. So hence the subtitle. How old is your lie? Whatever the particular lie is that you've chosen to concentrate on at the moment, you know, whether it be the shape of the planet or a political false flag narrative. You know, I use the title false flag narrative because then hopefully people get what I mean. You know, you sold an official story of, oh, there were these gunboats in the Gulf of Tonkin that were attacking us. But when you go and look into it for yourself, you find out it was a false flag event. There were no gunboats. It was all just made up to sell a story to get people to agree to a war. So a lie is revealed and that reveals its illusion. And in that way, it can be helpful for people to reconsider what they're being told by those institutions of authority or that claim authority over us. So useful in that way, yeah. Get people to go beyond just the general education level that we're indoctrinated into by this established system, and rather than just parrot accepting what they're told by that education and say, oh yeah, I was told at school that the world is this shape, so therefore it's this shape. Instead, they go and look for themselves, they investigate for themselves, they self-educate, and they have questions that are valid but may not necessarily have an answer. Another one of my favorite examples is gravity and the so-called constant that is gravity. It's not a constant, it's a variable, and it varies around the planet. Yet in our standardized education, we're taught that it is a standard, it's a constant, and its value is 1. Earth gravity is 1. But when you go and investigate for yourself, you self-educate and you realize, hang on a minute, that's not the whole answer, is it? There's more to this. It's not truly a constant because it varies. And there's bits that you have never told me about that bring question to your claim or your theory. Because, for example, there's this bit over here where gravity is different for some reason. And the science doesn't want to look at it because it will fuck up their whole paradigm. It will shake the foundations of their academic claims to authority. So, same thing with the shape of the planet. Yeah? It's useful in that way, but other than that, it's not going to change your situation. And if you go to the government and say, hey, government, I want you to stop austerity because the world is actually flat. You really think that just because you're telling them the world is now flat, even if you think you've got evidence to back that up, that they're going to change their policy and their legislation so that austerity's ended and all of a sudden everybody gets free food and drink. Yeah, that ain't going to happen, is it? You see what I mean about childish expectations from a childish idea? Infantilized, which is how the system wants the majority to be, because then they will be obsessed in that kind of never-ending churn that they're creating in this social media environment. They can just throw in a new thing and everybody will churn around that, and the industry that has built up around that environment will churn out stuff that gets sold to people, you know, whether it be a book or a movie or a mug or a t-shirt or, you know, the latest documentary on a certain idea or subject matter, etc., and keeps churning and it keeps churning, and the situation remains the same. People's energy has been occupied and steam valved, and no change to the status quo has occurred. Job done, as far as the system is concerned. So it got me wondering about, well, there's this new idea that's being pushed around at the moment about how the world was suddenly erased about 200 years ago. There are these people or groups or institutions, whatever they are, that have the ability to just put a flood of mud across the entire world such that, you know, what was there before has been erased. This previous empire that supposedly used to live has been destroyed, and the remains of it has been covered over with this flood of mud. And then from that point, you know, they had the ability to do that, but they didn't seem to have the ability to truly, totally erase all the stuff, all the information, all the knowledge, which enables now this new generation of people to come along like, you know, like they're in the passion wagon going along doing Scooby-Doo, following the clues, going, oh, look, I found a clue that reveals that actually a couple 100 years ago, they tried to wipe out all of history and start again. And oh, look, I found another clue. And, you know, I would have got away with it too if it weren't for you pesky kids. But in the time that it takes for these ideas to be churned through that new social media environment, there's 6 months gone. 6 months worth of legislation and policy changes and enactment physically in your streets, like new infrastructure being set up, buildings or other services that should be provided by your government getting shut down or having their funding reduced. But 6 months goes past while you're arguing about whether there was this flood of mud across the planet that erased the whole of the world before, but they weren't quite good enough. They were powerful enough to do that, but they weren't quite powerful enough to truly erase all the evidence of it. Therefore, we can now come along now like Scooby-Doo and go, oh, look, I found another clue, guys. Let's write an article and do a documentary about this new clue, and we can earn some money, make a film, write a book about this new clue. Yeah, year down the line. Yeah, it's another income stream. I can come up with ideas like that as well. The world was actually originally built by leprechauns. That's why, in my experience, I'm here now in this generation, and the world is far too small for me. So what's going on here? The world must have been invaded by leprechauns. They killed off all the original humans like me, who were tall, you know, we're giants. They got rid of all of us, and they built this new world, which is all only half the size. And I'm like, I can't fit in this chair. This chair's too small. This chair wasn't built for people. This chair was built for leprechauns. Let's investigate that for the next several months. I'm sure we can find some bits of evidence knocking around that can back our argument, you know, if we cherry pick. So anyway, I'm ranting a bit about some of this stuff because some of it does just get ridiculous, but yeah. There's a spectrum of people in the world, and some people like playing with shit like that. They just like the entertainment, whatever. And others just like to make money out of that kind of shit. Yeah. But back to the actual trying to explain what I was getting at with that one sentence statement, or question, how old is your lie? What difference does it make in the long run if, let's take your premise or your idea, your theory as true, and we'll say, okay, that event happened a couple 100 years ago and the world was suddenly changed, and like, what difference does it make now then, right? How can I use that information, or how is that information useful to then affect the situation we're in now, where this stuff is happening now? This is being done to people now. More than 100,000 people in the UK, at the last estimated numbers that have been put out, more than 100,000 people in the UK have died due to or directly connected to causes of austerity or other cutbacks in funding to services that were there before that are no longer available. Yeah? So how was it, whether it happened 200 years ago or 6,000 years ago? Does this idea that somebody came along and wiped everything out and started again help us in addressing what's actually going on now and moving forward from there? Again, I'd say in the element of revealing an illusion, potentially yes, maybe if, like I say, you take your idea, your premise as true, I present that information to people. How then does it help them from this point forward? I think it would only help them in so much as proving any other lie to be a lie helps people. It breaks an illusion and it helps them learn to reassess for themselves, to take their authority back, to be sovereign to their own self and look at things again for themselves and come to maybe a new conclusion. They might come back to the same conclusion. That's their choice. But at least they have an opportunity to see that, oh, hang on a minute, this thing that I've been told about is now proven to me to be a lie. I need to reassess from this point. Do I still trust these institutions that taught me that lie? Or do I need to look at all the other things that they've taught me and reassess? So whether you present people with an idea of like, hey guys, maybe the world got, turned into this quagmire, 200 years ago, think about that potential connection. Why do they want everybody to suddenly be concerned about mud? Because what is mud really good at? Grinding things to a halt, like quicksand. You get stuck in the mud. The sun bakes the mud and it turns hard as rock. You end up breaking your ankle or something, in all the potholes in it. It slows everything down. It covers everything in brown. So why do they want everybody to be concerned about this at the moment? It's almost like throwing a whole load of ready mix cement into a flow of water, and you're going to slow it all down and turn it into this goo, this quagmire of churn. You could tell them about that, maybe prove it to them, or maybe you could tell them about some other lie that is much older, that is several thousand years old, and you go, hey, here you go, look at this evidence, look at these arguments, this reasoning that reveals that what you were taught in school about something in the ancient past turns out to be totally bogus. It was a lie written by the winners to suit their own agenda, to make a system to indoctrinate their own people to have a certain mindset and belief system. Now I've just presented to you all this stuff that reveals that lie. Do you feel a need to reassess what you accept as truth from these people that claim some kind of authority over you? So did it really make any difference whether what you're revealing to them was 200 years old or 6,000 years old? Could maybe have a long semantic argument. It's been my favorite word for recently. It says we could have a long semantic argument about, well, in the gap of 6,000 years, other stuff could have happened which could have compounded the original lie and all. Yeah. It's just the reality of the world, isn't it? You find people who weave networks of lies get to a point, people, I'll say the word like sociopath and whatever, people who live with a compunction to use lying to enable themselves or enable their lifestyle or whatever it is. They weave such a network of lies around themselves that eventually they start to believe some of their own lies, and they start to forget that they actually made up some shit 20 years ago that they told somebody, and it's like, oh, you know, did I actually really do that, or did I make it up at the time to tell that guy so I could convince him to buy some shit off me that I was trying to sell him or what? Yeah, so in the same way, yeah, we could semantically argue that it would make a difference how long ago it was and how revealed it was, how widespread it was. Did it only affect one group of people, one ethnic group, one tribe, or did it infect the entire world? Yeah. But that is just semantic arguments that avoid, dance around the principle that in the first place the information was wrong. It was a lie. So just address that point. You can say that in many different ways, and similar to like I've just said it now for the last like 30 minutes, it doesn't involve trying to convince anyone that there were these group of people who seemed to have this amazing ability or power or magic or whatever it was to stick loads of mud all over the world all of a sudden, and then they brought in all these armies of children to rebuild everything, and whoa, don't need any of that, mate. There's plenty of examples of provable official bullshit. So why resort to something so fantastical other than it creates this environment, this fertile ground to feed that churn? Meanwhile, yeah, some people are trying to bring attention in a more direct way that's ended up with them wearing fluorescent jackets. What are fluorescent jackets designed for primarily? To bring people's attention, to gain their visual attention. Relies on vision, yeah, like resolution. Like when you're changing the resolution on your screen, on your computer or whatever, yeah, maybe you set it, or maybe like often happens to me with a lot of the Google stuff now, with the broadcasts, it will automatically drop them to 140p because for some reason, yeah, because I'm using Firefox, for some reason, you know, this information doesn't move around the internet as good as it used to. So you have to reduce the resolution, so it gets a bit blurry. But when the bandwidth or whatever other, you know, gremlin trickery it is that's going on that causes that kind of loss of resolution or fidelity gets resolved, and then I can turn the resolution back up again. Now I can see it clearly. And what is it? This is where I get to sort of my esoteric connection of these things. These are obtuse, seemingly obtuse ideas and topics linking together. But what is it that is really in the definition of the term awake or awakening? I've explained before in the past, I prefer to say awakening because it's an ongoing process. People need to comprehend the idea that you don't just wake up once and then it's over and done with and you're woke and you never need to learn anything else again because now I know it all, mate. It's another solipsistic trap that the system has pushed out there to corrupt people or catch people. It's an ongoing process, but the definition is about you being aware of your environment and what's going on around you, about the reality around you. When you wake up from being asleep, you are awakening. That is the coming to awareness of, we call it consciousness, but it's the coming to awareness of your environment such that you can start to interact with the environment directly. You can apply your will to this reality that you're experiencing. When you're asleep, you're not really aware of your surroundings, are you? I know some people, you know, have lucid dreams and all that kind of stuff. Again, we could shoot off in a tangent, but hopefully you get the point, you get the analogy. Awakening is about coming to awareness of things So when you find out a lie, you realize a lie, you find a new bit of information that goes, hang on a minute, that Gulf of Tonkin thing was total bullshit. It was a lie. Your awareness has just grown. Your awareness of the reality around you, the truth of the reality around you has just grown. So you have gone through an awakening process. Part of that awareness requires resolution in one definition of the word. You know, I'm not talking about the when you change your resolution on the screen, you know, altering the size of the pixels. Resolution implying fidelity, again, getting closer to truth. It's and just similes that add up to the same meaning. But when you're coming into awareness, when you are awakening, things get a finer and finer resolution. When the lie is revealed, it's like the resolution has just been turned up, so you can see it more clearly. You can see the truth more clearly. It's no longer clouded as if by a veil or a fog that has been put into your brain, put into your spirit to delude you as an illusion. An analogy I'll mention here, because I said it when we were just chatting earlier offline, and I thought, yeah, I'll try and remember that. I might have said this before at some point, but a holograph or a hologram is a visual illusion constructed from light. A laser beam, you know, when you go to a big fancy concert, you know, music concert, and they've got laser beams on the stage and whatever. What is the one thing that is guaranteed that you'll see whenever you see a laser? You'll see smoke, because the laser is usually, unless they do something like add smoke or other methods to color it, the beam is invisible to our vision. So they spray a load of smoke onto the stage so that the laser is revealed in the smoke. The reason we were chatting about this offline was talking about cannabis and the use of cannabis, and the smoke reveals the lie. The smoke helps reveal to people that this thing is a trick of the light. It's a hologram. It's an illusion. It's not real. It's constructed, concocted, and the smoke reveals that. This is one of my arguments about the use of cannabis and why potentially they've kept it restricted from a large amount of the population until we've got to the stage where they can mess with it, and they'll start altering it and making it so basically it doesn't do what it used to do. Yeah. When I get older, I'll probably end up saying, oh, it's not like it used to be. When I was a lad, can't get cannabis like they used to grow. But yeah, that's the pessimistic potential. But anyway, yeah, back to the resolution thing. Why they're wearing yellow fluorescent vests? Because it's a deliberately chosen material and colour that is bright in our vision. It attracts your attention like a flash of light. You know, so it draws your eye, and from that you gain that resolution. You can see it more clearly. And that was, to me, part of that, you know, what's been going on recently. As I do, you know, taking things that have been happening during the week and trying to look for deeper connections or longer agenda connections that are going on, because on the surface layer, the majority of it is deliberately put there just to distract people, keep them busy, give them something to do for however long that they waste investigating something in particular. I shouldn't really say waste, because you never know. Maybe people investigating some of these ideas are going to come across things that are bloody useful to us. Yeah, and I'm saying that in a kind of, you know, collective sense to us, not just to me personally in some way. But a lot of what's been going on, certainly the last week or two, seems to be deliberately to keep people distracted away from the energy that is building up as we're approaching these major changes, or going through these major changes at the moment. So the more people that start to realize more of the lies, start to gain higher level resolution of what it is they're looking at, so they're gaining more awareness. And from that, if you want to interact with the world, you need to know what the world is doing, what's it made of. You want to carve a piece of wood, you have to look at it and think, right, it's that kind of dimensions, the grain's going that way, it's that kind of density of wood. I'll need this tool and this tool to work this, and I've got to work it in such a fashion to make it the shape I want. They are taking that energy and just dissipating it into entertainment crap. Let's watch the latest celebrity gossip bullshit on the TV. Or let's just argue about the left and right bullshit of Theresa May versus Corbyn. Reveal the lie. That helps people progress. That helps people increase their awareness, potentially. They couldn't. I tried to say could and can at the same time. They couldn't. They add the T to that. They couldn't. They could and can, many people do, take that new awareness and let it scare the shit out of them and actually retreat back into the circus game. There's a lot of people who do that. The climbing up the mountain is not an easy route to take. The further you go, the more you lose of what you thought you had or wanted. The higher up you go, the more you shed of what is the trappings of this bullshit. Maybe that's too esoteric for now, but the point being, most of what seems to be going on these last couple of weeks seems to be about distracting from that energy. So if anything, that brings me back to my main title, Viva la Resolution. And I said this last week, I think I'm going to keep watching, try and keep track of what is actually going on, because this energy seems genuinely organic and is moving quickly. And it seems, hopefully now, this time, people have become more aware of the way a lot of the methodologies that the system uses to manipulate that movement of energy. So things like the Facebook blackouts, the mobile phone problems, and various other stuff, the propagandists, the influencers, the left and right talking heads that just give you one side to argue with the other side over that dialectic process. More and more people seem to be aware of that shit now, which means it's more likely that people will be able to more genuinely organise and take action in such a way that doesn't get entrapped into that bullshit. I think the whole reason this time period seems to have been key to many of the agendas, or it's certainly a critical point of chapter change. We're at a point where certain chapters in their main narratives are switching gear. They've gone from one chapter into the new one, but it involves major changes occurring, such as here in the UK, the Brexit situation. For us at the moment, that whole situation is the major chapter change, because however it plays out, it is not going to be what the people who voted for it, or the majority of the people who voted for the Brexit, it's not going to be what they think it is, or what they've been told that it's going to be. It's not going to be the return to the 1950s, Britain first kind of idea. It will not be that. However it plays out, whether it's the Theresa May's crappy deal or no deal or total collapse of the whole fucking idea and a new referendum and Jeremy Corbyn, it will not be what people were actually voting for when they went and said, oh yeah, I agree with that idea, I want that. It's a major chapter change point for the big agendas. The European super state cannot be broken up. Now that its momentum has progressed this far, they will not allow us to break it up. We are not allowed to leave. They might give us a facade of separation. We'll be allowed to keep certain elements of our culture that makes it seem like we're separate from everybody else, but we won't be. The Schengen Agreement hasn't changed at all. The numbers of people moving and stuff like it hasn't changed at all, and it's not going to. So just as one example, that's what's going on for us in the UK, and that seems to have spread to other European countries where I've seen signs saying Frexit on some of the clips of the protests from, I'm not sure if it was Paris, but one of the French protests. So that energy is moving and it's spreading organically. So is it a surprise that there's all this other shit going on at the same time to try and capture people's energy and take it somewhere else? How old is your lie? How much difference does it make how old the lie is? Just reveal the lie. The revealing of the lie is what helps, not arguing about whether it happened 200 years ago or 6,000 or 10,000 years ago. Anyway, that's enough for me. I was trying to keep it shorter this week. I didn't want to do a massive long monologue. I want to try and change. I know I've said it before not so long ago. I will change what I'm doing with this at some point, maybe in the new year. Maybe do it a little bit of a different style, but whatever. Yeah, I want to try and stop doing the hour plus monologue. I think I've done enough of that. There's tons of it there, for people to dig through.
Yeah, no, it's very good though. I mean, I mean, we could just get straight on and get at it next year, do that kind of thing. But no, it's good. I mean, it's interesting. I thought, instead about general strikes and things like that, I thought, moving forward into the future as we're going with this AI stuff, it'll be pretty much a last chance to make any effect of any systems. If AI takes over completely or running of whatever, you won't need humans to do much, will you? So a strike will be ineffective because there'd be nobody, it wouldn't stop things moving, put it that way. Driverless vehicles, the way things shift around the system, whatever. And so
that's why I think that's part of why they're in such a rush to just implement it. They are building the infrastructure now, whether people notice or not. They're already doing it.
Yeah, it's happening around us as we speak, like you say, with the push of I mentioned it again, the Alexa and this digital assistance in your life, this thing to take over and be part of how you run your life. And that's being pushed massively in the Christmas campaigns I've noticed recently. Everything's comes with a free Alexa, or get this half price, or it'll change your life, and it's being pushed massively for this year. And they want everybody with these digital assistants in their homes. And they're not new, like I say, they've been around for a while now, haven't they? We've been chatting about them for a long time, but now the big push is on to get everybody on board with these things and have them in your home as your to run your life and to help you with whatever. It's ridiculous. Well, again, and I'll rant about it again because it's collecting all your data. It's a listening device. That's the one thing you should know about it. It's a listening device. That's how it works. It listens to everything you say. And where's all that conversation being stored, and where does it go back to? And this is where it becomes creepy. This is where it's not really helping you in the end. It's helping the system. Yeah. So you've got to think about this. And they want everyone to have one. Isn't that interesting? Push it out there. Everybody must have one, free of charge as well. Give them away. And that's how they get everybody normalized to it all. And the smartphone's been the step toward that, with everybody on the devices and that.
So I was going to mention the new Google version, which actually has a screen, because it did make me wonder whether, they deliberately bided their time with this one, because they could have presented the same idea to the consumer public with a screen on it. The technology at the time that they brought those devices out, what was the other one? The Amazon.
Got the Echo. Yeah, the Echo.
When they first started making them and selling them, the technology already existed that it could have been a screen version, a touch screen version that people could interact with. But they opted for this simply, design-wise, it's somewhat unobtrusive. It's not, it's not big loads of flashy lights and in your face. It's something fairly moderate, is the only word I can think to describe it, that you can put on a shelf somewhere that looks a little bit like an air freshener to me anyway. My age, I remember air fresheners looking like that. But it's something that looks somewhat unobtrusive, and you don't notice it's there because most of the time it is just in that listening mode, and it only reacts when you call upon it. Yeah. So, it made me think, like, did Google deliberately wait to bring out this one with the screen? Because now they've had the confirmation from the general consumer public that's like, well, yeah, okay, we accept this idea of having this monitoring device in our homes because it looks all right, it's unobtrusive, I don't notice it's there because it's just this thing sat on a shelf unless I choose to interact with it. Now that they've had that confirmation that the public will willingly acquiesce to have a surveillance device in their homes, they're like, well, okay, here you go. Here's the actual Big Brother screen. Now there is a screen that you interact with. You seen the movie? You read the book? The screen? Yeah, the Big Brother screen. If I said to you 10 years ago, hey, do you want to buy a Big Brother screen to put in your house? You would have gone, oh, no, mate, why would I want a surveillance device in my house? Or, no. Whereas because they've used this gradualistic approach of it's something unobtrusive, you don't notice it's there, it's useful when you want it. Now people willingly accept, oh yeah, give me the Big Brother screen thing, mate. Yeah, I want the surveillance device.
And they get the reaction from the public more recently with the stuff to do with Cambridge Analytica and this revelations that they do scoop up your data. They are listening, they are taking it, but there doesn't seem to be too much of response from the general public. Doesn't seem they're too bothered because they've still got access to their websites or their whatever, Facebook, Twitters, whatever, and they're
celebrity gossip.
Yeah, they're more than happy. So they're not bothered. So they just go ahead, like you're saying, push the next level, and it is virtual. It is like having 1984, the screen in your house and the listening device and the suggestions. I mean, the story I read out last week about the fact that we will counsel couples on their relationship issues. Because it's listening in the home, and it'll say, it will offer advice, and it will counsel you and recommend whether you should stay together or divorce. Yeah, that's where it's going. It's like,
this is related in a way, Cookie, what you were saying about people that come onto the internet to learn something. They realise what they're told at school was like irrelevant, or it was, the facts were chosen for them to come to certain conclusions. So they go to somebody like Max Sheridan or Thomas Eigen. I mean, they're interchangeable, these people, yeah? And all they're doing is exchanging one authority figure to tell them how it is for another, because they didn't realise what people haven't pointed out to them, and it's not easy to see, that you were inculcated into a system where you are the student and somebody else is the authority figure giving you information. That's the part of the education that's never spoken about. It's a structured thing. It's the given that that is assumed by the system. And so people go look for a better teacher, and then some people do want to just hold your attention like Max Eigen, but if anybody is actually trying to teach you something, that is maybe one of the first things they need to tell you, that your attitude to authority needs to change, and that doesn't mean running upstairs and jumping on your bed and crying and putting your fists on the pillow. You've got to grow up a little bit. Yeah
definitely. That's what people are not doing enough of, and they get stuck in that.
This picture, go on, please.
No, go on.
I was going to say, I was trying to link three different things up here together. Because what you were saying about the Alexa, that is the authority figure. It's able to tell you about that's authority as well. And here in France, these kids just decided one day to have sort of a protest at their school. The police come in and made them get on their knees. Yeah, they're like, whoa, no. You're at school. You're in a place where you're learning who the authority is. You can't just march about the streets and have a bit of fun and let the insurers make a bit of money. Yeah, by pushing up the insurance premiums for everybody, because that's what a lot of these riots do. Every time they burn a car in the city, the insurance companies, oh great, we can put the insurance up on cars now.
Yeah.
They will. Frank said in the thing, do you think this is all a controlled opposition? Of course they're in there. They always are. They don't miss an opportunity. But as long as people keep a pure purpose, they should be all right. But it's about authority, and here it is again.
Coming in your faces, and it's interesting. I don't know if you mentioned that Economist cover with the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse over the UK.
No, I forgot to mention it. Yeah,
which was you know, the new front cover for 2019. That's one of the little images on there. There's lots of stuff on there, loads of stuff, but
Yeah.
that one in particular, and the bulldog, British bulldog, which was sitting over Canada.
Yep.
Interestingly, and we just sort of, well, you go on, Cookie, you tell them.
When we were looking at it a
Yeah.
few, well, it was last week, I think, at some time, somebody got the image and we were chatting about it. It was off air. I never thought to mention it after that. But yeah, looking at the image, the four horsemen, as their position on the map in the background of the image is right on top of the UK. And on Canada, sat on Canada, is the British bulldog. And I cannot remember who it was that I heard it from or where it comes from, but there is an old theory that's been around for a while about the British Parliament and the royal seat at some point being moved to Canada for some reason. Yeah, and I cannot remember it because I heard it somewhere years ago.
I mean, with Brexit, they crash
there
it
you
here. You know, if they crash it here or whatever, or you know, off they'll go to their new lands. There you go. It's Gary sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so they've stood over the UK. And the British bulldog is sat on Canada. Yeah, I'm sure many people say, oh, it's just coincidence. And a few other people say, oh, it's just the Economist, you know, it's a Rothschild's press. They deliberately do this shit just to mess with people. But at the same time, it's like part of the illusionist trick relies on you playing along with the illusion. And they set things up and they use little psychological trickery to get your mind to go along with it, you know, suggestions and stuff like that. And that's what they're doing with this in that sense. You know, I can agree that it is just the Rothschild dynasty messing with the public mind, but it's not just because they're mischievous. You know, they're not doing it just for a laugh in the boys' club. There is purpose to the imagery and the messages that they put out there. They know that this will feed the churn of that social media conspiracy genre kind of thing. But at the same time, that's part of what they want. And the subliminal stuff that's going on with this imagery will still sink in with the general populace, no matter what the conspiracy theories.
They've got their contempt for the average man right there, yeah, in the middle. The Vitruvius figure is like the average man, and they've given him 4 arms. Well, he's got 4 arms normally, yeah, because he represents a square and a cube. But they're showing you, yeah, I mean, he's blinded by the virtual reality glasses, yeah?
Yeah.
And he's distracted by weed.
Yeah.
By
Notice the DNA thing, though. I think that implies genetically modified weed. Soma.
Yeah.
It's not, like I said earlier, it's not cannabis. It will be soma.
Yeah. It's
in the other hand with the baseball.
Well, they call it couch gear, don't they? And then in these two, you got your mobile phone. And what I mentioned the other week in the Hangout is this judgment. Yeah, everybody on Facebook,
social media,
or not like, and
that's what social media is all about, right? Getting people to play the judgment game.
Yeah, because it's such a distraction. It makes you feel powerful. You're the one with you're the one that can decide, like it or not. You know, and as well, a lot of that ties into the Chinese thing. I mean, there are people out there who are so fucking brain dead. When the Chinese social contracting comes in, yeah, with the likes and that, there are people who want to be a part of that system, thinking, well, I want to be able to like my neighbours who are good and the ones who follow the rules. I want to be able to be a part of that.
The illusion of scarcity will help drive it as well, because people will be convinced that they can make a buck out of it. Yeah, there'll be many grey market companies that will guarantee to get you a certain score. Yeah, so it'll become another wheel in the economic industrial system.
Just keep
virtual prostitution.
Yeah. Creating a profile that you know will get a good score. Yeah, it'd be like going to buy a fake passport. You go, hey, yeah, get me a good profile with you, mate. Yeah, Costs extra for 4 stars, yeah.
Cameron already did it, didn't he? He bought 5,000 Facebook friends. Didn't he?
Yeah, Obama bought 1 million.
Yeah.
That's
But,
sad.
you know, that's the contempt they have for us. They're actually telling you, look, this is how we're going to distract you.
Well, they're telling you lies all the time, aren't they? You said the lies and the constant lying, and it just doesn't stop. And this energy building, I mean, we've seen it before. We saw it with the Catalan thing, back the sort of, people getting together and creating a good vibe and wanting some independence and breaking away from the system. No, we saw what happened there. I'm not putting a dampener on this, by the way. I hope this is a wave. This is something, but like you said, on these shores, I've said it before. We wouldn't be allowed to do it, or the way that the people are. Like you said earlier on, they're just so now in that sort of psychological state that they probably won't do it. I mean, I got a feeling that there's a lot of angry people out there, but they know what will happen if they will get the guns out, they'll send the dogs out. They will be. It'll be like France 10 times worse in the sense of the brutality. And I know there was a guy got his hand blown off. Was it the hand grenade or one of the protesters?
Yeah,
I don't know if that was.
I think that was. I haven't looked for details, but I think you'll find it was probably a flashbang.
Yeah.
And I know, like some people have said, it was a hand grenade. Well, I doubt it very much. It was more likely a flashbang, or maybe even a smoke grenade that misfired. And because he was holding it, that's why it took his hand off. Because it would. Whether it was a flashbang or a smoke grenade, it'd take your fucking hand off if you're holding it while it explodes.
I think you find some of them flashbangs actually do send out a couple of shrapnel pieces, small ones. Yeah, like, they'll go off at one end and little bits will break off, but they're not an actual grenade. Just a little bit breaks off.
Well, it'd be interesting to see how the French get together and withdraw their energy from certain areas of giving your money energy to like the fuel and things. I mean, this is what we say. Like there's the numbers are on side if people are all on the same wavelength. If they all decide they're not one day they'll fill up their car once a week and that's it. Don't ever go to the fuel station, but just once a week, and that kind of thing. Or, this is the sort of action we need to take, and we have to do it. We all have to get involved in it because it's all fucking us, isn't it? It's about, we're the ones at the bottom getting, nothing or, being stamped on and taxed the fuck and everything else. It's, unless you do withdraw your energy in some shape or form, you can do it on a small level, just, like we do in certain ways. Certain things I don't contribute to anymore, realize what they are, and I withdraw my energy from there, withdraw my energy from this as far as I can, but then there's, like I say, on this level now where people are beginning to, all wear the vests and come out and say we've had enough, maybe in their small communities and things of this nature and the way their system's set up, you have to get together and do it on that level as well.
Well, I think in some ways the Catalan, what happened in Catalonia, and remember there was about 2 years they've been protesting in France, just the students, and I think that really was the when those protests keep going on week after week after week, people might not like it, but, it gets through to their heads. This is what you got to do. And another thing, when you said they haven't played the food card yet, because that's what they would do if a general strike goes on for more than a week, 10 days. They say, well, it's your own fault. Now you can't have any food. And that's why they want to close down communication between the cities and the countryside. But also what you've seen in Catalonia happening is when a bank is responsible for somebody being evicted, they don't go to the headquarters. They go to the local bank that is handling that mortgage, and they just invade the place for a day, occupy it for a day. So that's a day's business lost for the bank. And if individual businesses are targeted that people can identify and say, well, Amazon, they work people till they die. So you get about 500 people around Amazon, just enough to bring the police out and the cameras. Just a constant whittling away of the system and the worst parts of the system. Are sitting outside Starbucks because they never pay any fucking taxes. Yeah, why not every week? These are things that could be,
Well, it's like the outrage that didn't happen over, like I said before, the Cambridge Analytica scandal. Where they are listening and they're taking your data, and that's what happens. And everyone still continues to, use all these social sites, continually reveal their innermost details to social media platforms and whatever, and what they're doing every minute of the fucking day. Plus, they're now getting Alexa installed because they think that's great too. It just, that's the dumbing down aspect, isn't it? That's the darker side of, you know, it's like it's drawn you in with the glitzy glamour and the ease of use and the shiny bright thing type attitude, you know, and we love it, and it makes our life so much more easier. But then the darker side, the stuff they're not, you know, they're using it against you in the end. They're using it to control you. They're using it to put a box on your head and limit your awareness. That's what they're doing in the end, because that's what the Google feed's all about. And the YouTube algorithm, we've said it many times, you know, it's there really to just fixate you and, you know, into one area and recommend what it thinks is necessary you like, not, you know, and it's guiding you, and without
or what
you
it
knowing it.
thinks will fix you.
Yeah, and or distract you or whatever it is, or who knows. It's the like I say, that AI is getting bigger and stronger. You've got weak AI and strong AI, and I think the strong AI is not really kicked in yet, you know.
I think with that though, it's a lot more difficult to recognise and to understand it for the average person. I mean, you know, when everybody sees that Starbucks didn't pay 200 million in taxes last year, that's easy to understand. You know where there is a Starbucks, you can go down there. Nobody can go and boycott Data Analytica's head office.
Yeah, or the
People
Rothschild.
aren't going to want to, you know, leave their Facebooks and all the rest of it. But what people don't understand is, if there's just one video, you know, connected with something you watched last week, people think, oh, that's good, or it's a bit bad, or it's a bit creepy. They don't realise how much work has gone in to doing that. Yeah. I mean, that is a cult. I mean, in man hours, you know, it would take about like 20 man hours to go down through all the videos that you watch, yeah, and then you've got to go into the system where the videos are chosen, and you've got to say, okay, I'll push this button and click this and this. You know, if it was all like the old telephone exchanges, it would take fucking hours and hours and hours just to put a video on the side of your feed that is likely to interest you, but the algorithms do it all. And I think that is really hard for people to grasp how, you know, a couple more steps and we're done for. Yeah, it's
well, it seems that way, isn't it?
Can I just come back to a core point? A core point or principle that we're talking around, but maybe not stating directly, because it relates to comment in the chat from Jason Holmes. I rate things for posting in the chat room, but it's very important to what we're saying, yeah, because the way we're talking about this kind of stuff is non-violent. Yeah, we're talking about doing things that do not involve using violence. And Jason was writing in the chat, but they use violence to consolidate power. If we try to be non-violent, then we play into their hands. To win, you don't have to be tougher or stronger than your opponent. You just need the will to do something they won't. And the reason I wanted to point this out or bring this in, is to reiterate stuff I've said before, but it's important when we're talking about these kind of protests and the fact that the people who go in there, the majority of them, the vast majority of them, are wanting to be and actually being non-violent. What they're doing does not involve violence. There'll be propaganda, agent provocateurs there, and there'll be some people, just like there is inevitably in all walks of life, there are some people that are there for the fight. You know, they want a bit of violence. They're there for the jollies kind of thing. But the point is like, your second statement, to win, you don't have to be tougher. You just need to be willing to do something they won't. That is exactly their attitude. That is why they are where they are and you are where you are and the rest of us all in the shit, because they're willing to do things that you don't. So if you, in the same way as with the violence thing, if you use violence to overthrow them, you are not changing the system. You're just taking part in that same system, because this system, its core foundational requirement is the use of force over others. If you prove all their laws wrong, you can be totally correct. You can be totally innocent, totally accurate, totally in honor to everything you're doing. The system will resort to the stick and it will beat you. And if just beating you is not enough to prove their point, they will kill you. They will hung, draw, and quarter you and stick your head on a spike to prove the point.
Yeah.
They rule through the use of violence. So if you truly want to change the system, right, using violence is nonsensical, because all you're doing is repeating exactly what they do to us. So all you're going to do is change the face on the throne.
He's right though when he says people have got to be prepared to do what they want, and that means kneeling down in the street and taking those sticks. I've seen the Catalans do it. I've seen the Catalans getting beaten to fuck, and they will not fight back.
Yeah.
And the strange paradox about violence is, you know, you can't use violence when you're 20, 30, even 50% of the people, because they'll hammer you and they'll shoot you.
Yeah.
You can't use violence until you're 90% of the people, and then you don't need to.
Yeah.
The other thing as well, I think is very vitally important to always mention whenever you're talking about that kind of element, is the non-aggression principle. What I'm saying, I feel, this is my approach to it anyway, and I think this is valid and logical and evidentially proven to work. You're not talking about being a total pacifist. If a situation benefits from being pacifistic, like Go was just describing, you take the blows from the truncheon because you know that your mate's got a camera pointed at you and the whole world's going to see it, and the tyranny has just revealed itself. It's exactly the methodology Gandhi used. He let the British forces beat on the public. He even let people get massacred because he knew it would reveal to the rest of the global population the tyranny and the use of violence by the British establishment. So in the same way, it can be useful to take a beating, to demonstrate, to make the tyranny reveal itself. But the non-aggression principle does not mean you are required to let them kill you.
Yeah, you defend yourself.
Yeah, you have every right to your defending your own existence. But that doesn't mean initiating violence against you, against them. The classic argument of, they only listen to violence, so we need to hang them from lampposts. That's the initiation of violence. If you initiate violence against me, I have every honourable right to kick the shit out of you because you started it. I did not initiate violence against you. Use the same principle with the state, and guaranteed they can't beat that system. They don't know how to beat that system. They only know how to use violence.
You've also got to realise that the cops there are two reasons a cop will be violent. One is when he's given an order to be, and the other is in the reaction to a violent public. So the longer that you hold out and you don't show them violence, you're taking half of their motivation away.
Mm-hmm.
That means that, even you don't see them, but even the riot police in France, the boss, he has to say to them every time, okay guys, line up, now we're going to fucking go down this street, get your sticks ready and hit them. They've got to be told every fucking time to do that, because they're not getting the kind of one-on-one violence that will switch them on.
I don't know. I've met quite a few coppers that are sadists.
Yeah.
They get a thrill out of using violence on people.
But when a demonstration's been going on all day and they just begin to get a bit tired, somebody's got to tell them, okay, boys, we're going to go for it again. I want you to go in there and keep hitting them. You see what I'm saying? They don't, they would, sure, there are some of them who would prefer to have an excuse. Don't give them that excuse. And their officer has to come and tell them to do it again and again. Yeah, and of course, a lot of the time, he's the one standing at the back. Okay, boys, run on boards, go and hit those people with sticks. And they get fed up with it. Yeah? So,
like you said before, Gary, just give them an excuse, though, to come back at you 10 times harder. And that's the problem. Yeah. And then we see like martial law and curfews, and we see all the stuff we've seen in the films they've been pushing out there for the past 20 years because this agenda's been, pushed out, and we're coming to this point of, 4 horsemen and the apocalypse. It's like, it's like, is this I mean, the story I mentioned on Wednesday as well, I'll just tell you now, is the one where that movie, The Big Short, you know, that film which is about the 2008 crash, and there was a guy who made a lot of money, billions, I think, and a few other people who bet against the housing market. Yeah. And they made that movie. I think it's called The Big Short. If you haven't seen it, it's interesting. And that same guy has now made hedge bets about UK bank failures. He's betting against the banks, basically, that they're going to fail in the UK, or one or two is. And there's a story about that which I saw, so I'll mention it more on Wednesday. So interesting that this, again, all based on the Brexit thing, by the way, all based on that sort of, you know, this crazy shit going on at the moment, this chaos. And then it was, I saw a story, I don't know if you saw it earlier on, about the EU now saying you can just come straight back in if you just say yes, you know, and it'll just go back to what it was, you know. So no problem, we'll have you back anytime. So it's this is where I think we're going anyway with it, by the way, you know, not coming out, and everything else is just a massive chaotic distraction, just like Trump was a massive chaotic distraction and continues to be, and all this shit is just chaos.
It's also given them the justification, or the supposed, the illusion of justification for all the austerity and all the removal of services, and we can't do this anymore because of Brexit. Yeah, perfect excuse for all the shit.
Well, one of the, when you was talking about the lies that might make a difference, yeah, and one of the biggest, of course, is about the mortgages. Where does the money come from? Where it comes from the central bank. It comes from the literally. It was once a printing press, but now because of digital, they don't even have to print it. Yeah, but it gets added to the money supply.
Yeah.
So when all the mortgages started collapsing and that, why did we have to bail out the banks? They hadn't given any money to anybody anyway. Yeah. I mean, that is a huge lie. That, you know, it's the banks that give you the money and it's somebody else's savings. It's not. Yeah, it's not. The banks don't give you anything. They just take their interest. So half the mortgages start collapsing, and all of a sudden we've got to pay the banks because they lost money. How did they lose money? I don't understand that, unless there's been betting.
Well,
yeah, so
that's the dark side, isn't it? Again, they just come and take it off us, and again, there's no need. It's just, this is all just, like you said, a game, an illusion. It's like they've made it up, you know. It's just, you know, and we've gone along with it because that's all we know. You know, that's all we were born into, a system of this kind of existence of tax and money and payment and energy being transferred in that way. It's been taken away. We've been like, this is like hell in a sense. You know, we're living in it. You know, it's like
just to add further to what we were asked, sort of, or getting into that point. Question from Cardini: when would you use force, Cookie? If somebody was trying to beat me up, if somebody was trying to take my stuff, if somebody was trying to attack my family or friends, or somebody that I thought was an innocent in the street, I would use force to try and stop that from happening.
Yeah.
Your point is somewhat semantic and open, isn't it? And that's the problem. And this is part of the kindling fuel that they use to agitate people to go and join in following twats like Stephen Yaxley Lennon, who's deliberately there to feed all that angst, to get people angry enough to initiate violence.
Yeah.
Using the same argument, it succumbs to a slippery slope fallacy, where the argument will end up at, well, considering you claim to have proof that these politicians are causing the deaths of thousands of people, why don't you therefore use force to prevent them from doing so, which, if taken to full extent, would mean hanging them from a lamppost, etc. It's a slippery slope fallacy. We don't need to hang them from a lamppost to stop the root causes of what is creating the problem, the austerity that leads to the deaths of people.
And look at the media attention that guy's getting, like we've mentioned. Look at the coverage he gets. Look at, he's on all the networks, because yesterday they had the march and he was all over the bloody BBC and other networks and stuff, you know. Tommy Robinson, you know, all that crap. So they're pushing this guy. They want this guy to be the new, you know, poster boy for you know,
UKIP,
the Brexit mob, you know. So
UKIP, isn't it? Haven't they invited him? I think UKIP now have invited him to be one of their MPs, or stand as one of their MPs. And Yahoo News said it exactly. Are UKIP trying to scupper themselves? Oh, no, they couldn't be doing that, could they? But, you know, another thing with the protests and that, you can't use the argument of, oh, in what case would you use violence when you've gone on a demonstration? You know, you can't use that argument of when would you use violence, because if you get attacked at a demonstration, you chose to be there. What Cookie was saying, what you see in the street and that is what I've always said, yeah, when you see the cops beating somebody in the street, get your fucking phone out. Doesn't matter who they are. Doesn't matter if they're a mugger or a rapist. They might not be. They might be innocent. So get your fucking phone out and keep, you know, let the cops know that they've got to be on their best behaviour, yeah, because we're gonna help each other.
yeah, you're right.
Just to some other points as well. Frank brought up, what about the mass genocide by Mao Zedong in China? And he also mentioned they get away with the murder of 60 million in the Bolshevik genocide. Again, mate, this is stuff where it's sort of like, yes, they did. How did they get to the point of being able to get away with it? My argument and my approach to this whole situation is you get to the point of the root of the initiation of the violence. The violence that is enacted through the externalization of authority. People externalize their power, their sovereignty, their authority into these institutions. Those institutions then turn around and say, you've given me the authority, therefore I use the authority to kill you. And then everybody goes, oh no, look, they're using violence against me. I wonder how they managed to do that. They managed to do that because you gave them permission to. This is nothing to do with the physical actions of violence. This whole structure relies on the mass of the population believing, accepting the lie that they don't have any authority. It's only these institutions and those who carry these special symbols have authority. So if one of those magi turn up with their special symbol and say, this special symbol means that I'm allowed to beat you over the head. And that person then goes, oh, okay, yeah, go start beating me then. The whole structure relies on the power of that mass of the people acquiescing to that lie. So the reason Mao Zedong got away with doing what he did is because he persuaded people that the only way to achieve change was through the use of violence. Yeah, that was it. Power comes from the barrel of a gun. So if you think a revolution is the way to change a system, example number one, China. What did it do? Killed millions of their own people, destroyed vast amounts of their own culture and heritage and knowledge and loads of other stuff, and turned it now into the social credit system, big brother state of the world, through the use of violence. Yeah, these arguments to me they're not new. You're chasing around your own same sticking points, your own cognitive dissonance of you think this is like having a punch up with a guy down the pub. It's not, for fuck's sake. You've got to get out of that mindset. This is a global war. It's not a punch up between a bunch of guys down the road where you have to think, oh, well, if he swings a punch at me, I'm going to swing a punch at him. I've got to get him before he gets me. That is the dog-eat-dog mentality that they want you to stay stuck in. If you stop feeding them energy, and if you tell them, you don't have any authority over me, mate, you're just another human being like me. So your claims to be justified to beating me over the head are nonsensical. And when you play them out, you reveal the lie of that claim to everybody else that witnesses it. And like we've just been talking about, yeah, the revealing of the tyranny is what changes the direction of the society. It doesn't change because the people at the top in power see the people protesting and go, oh, look, they're protesting. We must have been terribly wrong. Let's change what we're doing. We'll give them all free cake now. It doesn't work like that. People just start doing something different. The people who actually make up the population, not the small percentage who claim that they sit on top of us, that they're our betters, that they're in charge, they're the authority, they've got the bloodline, whatever other bullshit claim it is. They don't make the world. We make the world. So if you want them to stop having power, stop making a world where they have that illusion of power. Stop buying Alexa. Stop believing that getting involved in physical violence is going to enable you to dethrone a system that has been in place and building its power for thousands of years. You think that using violence against a system that has perfected the use of violence is going to work. That's exactly the kind of foolish mentality they want you to be in, because then you throw yourselves against the castle walls. And they get to crush you and use that action as a justification to do the same to everybody else. Sorry, rant over, but it's one of those points that comes up repeatedly. That's why, to me, I started to see it as cognitive dissonance, because it is like a very deep set. It's a societal cognitive dissonance. The only way the world works is by a small group of people using violence against others.
But that comes back into the people who are told how to think through the media. And you said earlier on about some people, they look at the information outside the system and they just go back into the system. And I think part of the reason of that is if the system is a lie, then your dreams based on or within that lie are worthless.
Yeah.
And people don't want to believe that.
Yeah.
Like Maggie Thatcher. Maggie Thatcher, when she said, "Oh, I'm going to be the person for small businesses." My old man, who was a small business, said, "Fucking bullshit." But she knew that for every person like my old man that had his own business, there were 10 people who were dreaming of it. Yeah,
Well,
and they were voting for like me in 5 years. I'll start my own business. Some people.
I was going to say the truth isn't pretty, is it? The truth, it's people want to have. Like you say, they get upset if they find something out and they say they go back in the system or I can't handle that, and it's ugly truths, isn't it? It's the truth, and then it's simple is what I'm trying to say, but it's the truth. Yeah, go on.
So it's a really simplistic example of cognitive dissonance. It's worked for years, Cookie. Drag them out and hang them. If it's worked, mate. What do you mean by worked? If it's worked, why are we still in the same shit?
If not worse.
Why is the situation still the same if it's worked? It obviously hasn't worked. Cognitive dissonance. You're taking something that is provably a failure and claiming it as a success. That is the definition of cognitive dissonance.
Like the French Revolution was actually a success. I don't think so. I think we could deal with this another time, but I said already, as soon as the revolution was over, the Masons were in there and they were ready and they took control of the government with only 40 people out of 125. And I'll tell you next week how they did that. Yeah, I mean, these people know exactly what they're doing. And some people say I think it was Louis was actually in hock owing loads of money to Jewish bankers. That's why they eventually said, "We've had enough of this guy." He wouldn't pay them back.
And it's about ending slavery and that sort of stuff. All kinds of slavery, we're all slaves in our own way. It's ending that and getting back to what we would say is freedom, which we don't even know what freedom is, do we? We've just been born into this shit, and we think freedom is watching Coronation Street or, listening to your favorite song and zoning out for a bit or whatever, but it's, it's this whole system of just being, like I say, we just don't see it. It's that old thing, the mental cage, around you. You think you're free, but you're not. You're just a happy slave if you've got a lot of money, or you just, you think you're, free. Makes me laugh. But, like I say, just look what's going on around us right now. Look at what's happening. People are not happy. The French aren't happy, that's for sure. Happiness isn't something that's, in abundance at the moment around the planet.
I'm going to read out some more comments and use them
go on,
as examples. There were thousands of vids of police beating up people or beating people up, sorry, and nothing changes. Things are changing because there are now thousands of videos. There never used to be thousands of videos of police beating up people. So there you go. That's the example of the tyranny being spread to others, that information raising the awareness of others that the police will resort to violence and beat on you. Again, the example used to Gandhi. That was how he stopped the British Empire or changed the public attitude to that situation. Yeah. Another one. A revolution is only as good as the aftermath. Citing a failed revolution is not relevant. The means worked, but the ends sometimes failed. Please go and look at all the revolutions. You'll find that they all end up the same. Even the English Revolution, even though they call it the English Civil War, I disagree that it was a civil war. It was an attempted revolution. And did that work? No, that failed. And they put the king back on the throne again. Yeah, and you can get into all the information about how Oliver Cromwell was connected to the various groupings and shit like that, yeah? But you can look at all the revolutions. They've all done the same thing. They destroy shit for a while. They kick the stuff around for a bit, and then it goes back to the way it was, if not worse than the way it was. These things haven't worked. We're still in the same situation now. The use of violent revolution does not work. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Yeah, exactly. Violent revolution has not changed the world. So, have you learned from that lesson yet? Or are you just going to repeat it? Same old bullshit argument.
And Gary's gone, so good night, Gary. Let's see him back later on.
Yeah, it's the same old arguments, mate, because you keep using the same old dissonant arguments against it. So what are we going to do? Sing them out. What did I just talk about? They only have this assumed claim to power because you keep feeding them energy. Stop feeding them energy. Yeah? Build a different world where they are not in power. Build a different world where you are spreading this awareness that they are just crazy people who think they've got some kind of power over you. Remove all the trappings of the royalty, and what is the queen? She's an old lady in a really big house. Are you scared of her? No, you're scared of her because of all the trappings, which you've been taught to accept as some kind of authority over you. Just like those beefeater guards have accepted that lie, and they will kill you to defend that lie. Stop believing the lies and build a different life, build a different world. Doesn't require violence. It just requires truth. You show people truth and they will see how violence has been used against them continuously. It's still being used now.
Yeah. It hasn't stopped. It's just done in more sophisticated ways. And don't put your head on a spike anymore. But it's, you know.
Well, it's something that I think it's interesting that there's quite a few names in the chat tonight which don't tend to turn up very often. But maybe they've seen an opportunity to coalesce for some potential reason that they are lurking like they often do, and then decide to come and present certain arguments and ideas and repeat certain dissonance, bullshit or fallacies that they've tried many times before. I'm just mentioning that in passing, but I do find it interesting that there are more names that don't turn up very often. But the reason I wanted to mention that as well is, Jason, if you want to talk about that at some point, I know you're saying I completely disagree. Fair enough, mate, but it's not something that we can interact with properly just for a chat room. If you want to talk about it, great, but other than that, it's not something that we can extend via the medium of a chat room because it's limited. You know, it takes a certain length of time. You can only fit so much text in there, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, this is one of those key topics, a key sticking point that the system has been using against the population for all of recorded history, you might as well say, reference what I was saying right at the beginning about how old is the lie, how long have they been using this shit against people? But this belief that the use of violence against others to impose your will or your order onto the world is the problem, is the reason we're in the situation we're in now. Those people sat up the top of the pyramid believe that that is the way to achieve the changes in the world that they want to see. So they treat you like shit. They treat you like cattle. They kill you off whenever they feel the need to. They use violence against you whenever they feel the need to get what they want done. So if you think doing the same thing all over again is going to change the world, to me, that is just insanity, the same insanity that they're using against us in the first place. Yeah, and this constant push of, oh, you must talk about violence, we've got to use violence, hang them from the lamppost, get them in the streets, violence, 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 is exactly what the system wants at the moment. Because you are justifying the increase in the police state, which is going to bring about the nightmare dystopian environment that you supposedly don't want. So perpetuating this talk of, oh, we got to fight them, we got to fight them, we got to... You're giving them exactly what they need. Yeah? And I'm not just saying that to imply that, oh, you should only talk about it in secret. The very intention just serves their purpose. Yeah? You want to do exactly what they're doing to you. How does that change the world? It doesn't. Full stop. There is no argument to that. You're just repeating the same shit. So claiming that, oh, we've got to do it because if we don't, some shit will happen. Shit is already happening. Sorry, I'm ranting because this is really, really important at the moment. Why are those 4 horsemen sat on top of the UK on that Economist cover? This is exactly what they want. This is why they've rocketed Stephen Yaxley Lennon to fucking prime position. Yeah. This is why I got so pissed off with other people just constantly talking about him and promoting him. Even when they were naysaying him, they were promoting him. You're feeding exactly what the system wants at the moment. They want you to start a violent revolution and they will kick the living fuck out of us.
Yeah, that's for sure. And that's what, again, it's this crashing the economy and crashing everything. And that's the reaction that they know they're going to get, aren't they? They are going to get it. There are going to be people go out there and do that. And we've seen it in the past. But, to me, like you say, what's the outcome? More freedom taken off you, more lockdowns, more whatever, more problems for you to just get on with your daily life. Instead of us using our savvy, using a bit more tact and getting together and doing it in a different, like you say, working out ways to withdraw your energy, do things that are having an effect. And, you just don't do it. It's the change of your perception, your mind, if you like. It's about working on yourself a lot as well and waking up to the fact that, they can't, get to you. You are sovereign, and all that stuff, and lose the fear. And the more you know yourself, you lose the fear anyway. So, and a lot of people are scared. They are scared. I can understand it. We have been born into this crazy system and not everybody gets it, or understands a lot of it. Like we've spent a lot of years looking into this stuff, and there's a lot of people out there who just getting bits and bobs and not really getting it all and thinking, oh, what does that mean? What is, and there's a lot of stuff to kind of, if you like, get your head around if you want to get a sort of clearer picture. And it does take a while for you to sit down and think about that. That's all part of the process. That's why they're trying to distract you so much with other shit to stop you from, a time in your life where you want to do that. You want to sort of go introspective and go in on yourself a bit more and start asking the questions. They've tapped into that by getting us addicted to all the other shit we're addicted to, like whatever it is you're addicted to, media, sports, whatever, entertainment, fucking telly, fucking whatever it is, but it's a distraction. If that's what takes up your whole life or a lot of it, then it's hard to, but they've done that deliberately. Like, was it Jordan Maxwell saying a while back, I was into something he was talking about a while back, saying only dogs chase balls and things like this, don't they? Like, they get you to chase a ball with a dog, run after the ball, and like kids.
The owner trains the dog to chase the ball.
Yeah. Now I've been indoctrinated with football. I like football, so I'm just this. I've been, I like the football. It's like, but again, it's like they've taken that sort of stuff and they've got it into your head at an early age, but then they've just kept it going the whole way through your adult life. But whilst getting, I mean, we said this, football and gambling, and men are just lost. That's it. The majority of men.
Let me just clear something up. Obviously, that's more than likely my fault for being obscure when I mentioned it. But a couple of things. I don't think you're being an agenda or something, Jason. No, I wasn't insinuating that I'm talking about you. And Super Lead said, we were encouraging people to come over here at the end. I'm not mentioning that. Like, there's certain names that have turned up in the chat room that I know of that have been around for a number of years. They're nothing to do with the Raconteurs News guys. I've never seen any of them turn up in the Raconteurs News chat. But they are names that are sock accounts that pop up every so often on the channel, and they usually carry the same kind of narrative, or they seem to have an agenda to push certain ideologies in this environment, or they're there just to create drama or chaos. Sorry, I wasn't insinuating anything at you guys. And the other thing was, I'm not saying hang them. I'm not even talking about instigating violence. I thought you were earlier, because you were saying, like, what are we going to do other than hang them? Unless I'm misremembering how you worded that. But I wasn't trying to imply that you have some kind of agenda or whatever. Not at all. But the point is about the use of violence. To me, that is essentially important. It has been for a long time, but at the moment it seems really important because of this push towards chaos. And in that chaos, part of what they're relying on is getting people so angry and agitated that they will succumb to that delusion, and they'll be out in the streets looking for a fight. They'll be looking for their local politician to start beating on or whatever. Or they'll do, like, I know you mentioned it on your show earlier, they'll do like Ceausescu. They'll be raiding Parliament, using violence to break in and fight people and kill people. And that's the chaos that the system wants at the moment. So to me, it's vitally important to push that point. And I'm the kind of speaker that gets quite passionate, and I can be very pushy. In the way I talk and the way my mannerisms are. I know it comes across as being very pushy, authoritarian, forceful. But to me, that's conversation. It doesn't mean, I'm trying. If I was attacking you, I'd be doing it in a much different way. Right? I wouldn't be talking about the ideas and the concepts. I'd be talking about you personally. But I'm passionate about this stuff because I think it is essential. One of the biggest lessons I feel for me was seeing the way violence is a core part. It's intrinsic to how the system does what it does and gets away with doing what it does. And it took me a while to find my way through that and trying to present that idea to others of, I'm not talking about being totally a pacifist and letting them kill you, quite the opposite. No. But what I am talking about is that when you're trying to fight somebody who, use that analogy of the guys in the pub having a fight. If you're trying to fight somebody who spent their entire life from the moment they could even crawl, learning every martial art on the planet and perfecting it so that they are a multiple Dan in multiple different martial arts, you think you're going to beat that person up using violence, you're going to best that person, or deal with the problems that they are causing by using violence against them. That's craziness. That's like trying to attack the whirlwind. What are you going to do to it? The way to deal with this thing is find the roots of its power. The roots of its power are based in illusion, in lies. And those lies rely on the person receiving the lie externalizing parts of themselves and acquiescing to that claim of authority that is couched in a lie.
Mm.
You know, you get people to realize that, and they withdraw their energy from that ideology, from that institution, from that infrastructure. And if you withdraw that, that withdraws the power that they have to persuade others to use violence against the rest of us. Yeah, the main way to change this system is addressing the people who are the enforcers. They are the military, the judiciary, and the police. Yeah, they're the ones that use the violence, even though they'll claim that they try to use it minimally and shit like that. They're the ones that use the violence to impose the will of the structure above them. You influence those people, and then the system will change, because they will stop obeying the orders to attack the rest of us. And one of the ways I feel that the only way you really reach those people is on that direct human level. You know, put aside the semantic arguments about what it means to be human and all that kind of shit. And the way they feel it is when they see it in their own world around them. When they start, I know Paul mentioned this on your show earlier as well, when they feel a trauma effect from the situation themselves. So if these, for example, if these policemen suddenly get that realization of, like, hang on a minute, you know, what all these people are protesting about, that's going to start affecting my life.
Yeah.
That's going to fuck up my life. That's going to fuck up my own kids. I'm going to take my helmet off and I'm going to join in with the yellow vests. Yeah. Then there is no enforcer for the Queen or whoever authority figure it is to say, hey, enforcer, those people aren't doing things the way I want them to. Go and beat them up. And he'll turn around and say, no, not doing that anymore. Sorry, you're just a little old crazy lady.
Mm. Would be nice, wouldn't it? If that
to me, that's where the root of the problem is. That is the din mac. That is the killing point. That is the nerve center that makes people wake up.
Because they all have families. They're not the elites, always remember. They're just the dogs, as we say. The dogs are the elites. They're just working for them and they have families and uncles, aunties, and families like everybody else does, and they know they're not part of that. They know they do. They know they are, because they just follow the rules and they play the role. And like you say, some of them are, you know, see it for what it is, and you know, whether they lie to themselves and carry on, but they're just doing as they're told. And if they don't obey orders, as you know, in any forces, you get put in jail. You get put in military prison.
For a lot of us, it stems from fear, obvious fear, you know, protecting your own survival, protecting the survival and well-being of your family, your loved ones, etc. And that fear is based on, well, you know, if I don't do what they're telling me, they're going to come along and get me. Yeah, if I don't do it, they'll sack me and somebody else will take the job, and then me and my family will be in the streets. So fear backed by violence. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. So it is at some point, and this is why, you know, I totally agree, and Paul said it, many other people have said it, for most of us, if not all of us, you only ever really start to realize this stuff or begin the process of working your way through this stuff when something shitty happens to you. Yeah, so sometimes it takes something to happen to you before you start to even ask the questions and start that process. Yeah, that is the most unfortunate part, but it's a reality. You know, so as the situation in general in the world gets worse, more and more people start asking these questions, which again is why, to me, it's vitally important to talk about some of these elements, such as the use of violence, the claims of authority, the externalization of power, all those kind of elements that are intrinsic to what gives this system its claim to power, its methodology of how it dominates us.
Yeah, and I'm going to say the privacy laws and the privacy stuff with Alexa and all this stuff. And
that's externalization of your stuff again. That's your loss of cognitive liberty. Yeah, cognitive liberty just means you can think whatever you like in your head, mate, as long as you don't do it to other people, you know, cause no harm or loss. You know, so you can think whatever violent thoughts you want in your own head, mate, as long as you don't start enacting them, mate, in the world. it's okay. You want to be thinking shit like that, man? You know, I'm a bit concerned about you, but it's your brain. You do what you want with it. That is being removed. And that again, you know, the 1984 screen.
Yeah.
You are not allowed to think certain things anymore.
Yes.
And that is just the beginning of the domination effect.
Anyway, Merry Christmas.
That was, I put that in my notes and I never got the chance to mention it, but that was one of the other lies. You know, Christmas. You want to talk about a system built of lies? Yeah, the entire system relies on the acceptance of certain lies to make it work. Like the straw man, like your birth certificate. And one of the first things we teach children is that there is this magic guy who comes down your chimney and brings you consumer goods if you're good. Yeah? Who makes the consumer goods? The system, the corporatist infrastructure. So therefore, what you're teaching your kids is that as long as you obey the rules of the corporatist infrastructure, it will supply you with consumer goods that you find entertaining.
Yeah.
Does that not just go ka-chunk in your head? You know, all this bullshit about, you know, Father Christmas, the Christmas tradition, you know, it's all about Christ, you know, the Savior, the season, all that kind of utter bullshit. There may be truths to those various elements, but they've all been corrupted into one lie that then we repeat generation after generation to indoctrinate our youth, our children, into accepting the authority of this system that says as long as you're good, you get rewards, you get material goods, wealth.
And at such a young age, that makes a massive impression on the...
Training consumers, training good little zombie robots to be part of the system.
But the main one is the 21st. I was going to say the Yule or the 21st.
Solstice Day, yeah.
Solstice. That's the proper day of, you know.
I'll say the usual kind of caveat as well. I'm not saying Christmas is evil. It's some bits of it and the way it's used. But there's nothing wrong with you wanting to spend time with your family and be good, you know, love your family and buy them presents. There's nothing wrong with that. But you have to be aware of the way that it is structured to affect the psychology of your own children. Those children grow up to be adults. Those adults then build the world that we all live in the same way as we did when we were children. Our parents taught it to us. We grew up being good little consumers and we built a consumer world around us because we've been trained to be good little consumers.
Yeah.
So you talk about, you know, changing this system and bringing down those people in power. There's just another lie that you can reveal to people that should help them reassess the way they interact with this infrastructure. Yeah, the reality that we experience in this infrastructure is something fake. It's constructed. Therefore, it's built in the shape of the people who built it. As in, you know, from the will of their mind, they created the shape of this thing. So if you reintroduce them to reality, they can build something different. Yeah, maybe if you teach or show your children a different point of view or a different way of looking at this kind of stuff, maybe when they get older, they'll change Christmas. Yeah, it could be part of why a lot of people feel that Christmas is being disappeared. It's not just to do with religions or because of religions. It's because the society in general is changing. And now the corporatist consumerist infrastructure has been more readily accepted. Therefore, they don't need the psychological validation of the pat on the head by the magical religious icon figure that is Father Christmas, who says, yes, you've been a good little consumer, here's your rewards. Now people just accept that consumerism, corporatism, planned obsolescence is just, that's the way the world works, mate. So it doesn't matter when you celebrate it, you can do whatever, you know, as long as you just keep buying stuff and that's good. You know, it's Christmas every day. So Christmas is de-evolving. It's now, they don't need to disguise it as much now. Now it's just, you enjoy your consumerism, don't you? Then be a good little consumer and you get more goods.
But just buy more at Christmas as well.
Yeah, magic beans, yeah. Sorry if I was ranting and stuff and whatever, but yeah, the subjects do get me venting a lot, because I think it is vitally important. Because otherwise we will experience another situation like Mao Zedong or the Bolsheviks, and there will be just chaos and a lot of harm done, and it won't actually end up bringing about the changes that I'm sure most of us want to see. So anyway, thank you for letting me rant at you. Thanks for giving us your attention, folks, for a couple of hours. Please go and check out the Raconteurs News. Have a listen to Jason and Paul, and they have some great guests on. I enjoyed listening to the guy you had on tonight earlier. David, was his name David? I think. Oh man, my brain's farting a lot. Sorry, but yeah, I enjoyed listening to him. He was saying a lot of good stuff. I thought, yeah, well, I'd say that as well. That's good. Yeah, it's always good to hear opinions that you agree with, isn't it? Yeah, just say yes. Just nod like a frog. Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad as well. You can say you disagree without getting offended as well. It's just the way it should be. We shall see. It's getting there.
Refreshing. Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting Christmas period with all the chaos that's going on. We'll see what the fallout of the Matrix debacle is going to lead to, the next few days. I'm interested to see what they're going to do with the supposed vote now. Now that it's been delayed.
It's going to be a bumpy ride to Christmas, I think, by the looks of it.
Yeah.
Politically.
It will galvanise people, hopefully. Because, one thing about chaos is it helps people remember their foundations. And this is something I sort of picked out of various things, philosophy and other approaches, but also from listening to, reading about people's survival stories. When people have been in some kind of disaster or major accident, the survivors, and they recount how their attention just focuses in like a beam of light. And they just get fixated on what they need to do to survive, like making it to the exit door, or, finding something that they need to find to enable them to escape, like a life raft or something. And it's that laser beam of focus. Oh man, losing my voice now. It's laser beam of focus that, again, the unfortunate truism of you don't start to realize a lot of this stuff until some kind of trauma affects you or somebody close to you. In the same way, often the direction you want to go doesn't always seem very clear until you perceive the chaos. And when the chaos gets stronger and stronger and stronger, the path you need to take stands out more and more obviously. It's like the single point of light in a pitch black picture. That single point of light stands out so clearly.
Yes.
Anyway,
And,
ranting and rambling.
I'm going to say I'm going to have to go myself. I just checked the time and it's gone 11. So.
Aye. Yeah. I'll shut up quick then. Thanks again for watching us, folks. Be back on Wednesday night. Tomorrow night, Tuesday night, guys will be on again on Raconteurs News, and Steve should be on again on Saturday night. So check them out. Check the links and the shares if you haven't seen them, and we'll chat at you again soon.
Yes, thanks, Cookie.
Take it easy, folks.
Cheers, all.
Catches.